Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. Happy St. Patrick's Day. This is the only thing that I could find close by that's green. So to be in the spirit tonight, I am teaching in my green favorite sweatshirt. So make sure you sign in, log in on the side under comments, and make sure that you check in on text message so I know that you're here. We're going to try to finish up on what we were discussing last night, dealing with hazardous driving conditions. The only topic that we were not able to complete in its entirety was driving at night. So we're going to spend about 10-15 minutes talking about some of the problems about driving at night and how to overcome that. And then we're going to get right into the topic of alcohol and drugs, one of the most important topics that we get to discuss here in driver's ed, besides learning how to control a vehicle and the rules of the road, because we find that there are a lot of people out on the road that are not in the best condition to drive. So drinking and driving is a real issue, and we're going to kind of discuss what are the options besides trying to get behind the wheel after being impaired by alcohol or drugs. And what should we do to people that do? What are the laws that we have? Should they be changed? Should they be more strict? Should they be less strict? And we'll be talking a little bit more about that probably tomorrow in tomorrow's class. So that is what's on the agenda. Before we get going like I normally do, I do have some openings for tomorrow. I have a 3 o'clock and a 5 o'clock if anybody can drive. And on Friday, I have a 3 o'clock open. Or if you can drive earlier than that, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So let's try to fill in some of these empty spots and try to also think about Saturday. I'd like to get some driving in on Saturday. So next week, I'm not scurrying around trying to get you finished up by Thursday or Friday. And actually, we have a little bit longer than that. But I also have to collect the textbooks, so that's going to have to be done too next week. So, and usually I like to do that when we're driving. So that is what's on the agenda. Let's kind of get right into the topic that we discussed last night, which was driving in adverse weather conditions. And even though you may not consider nighttime driving a real bad weather situation, it's not really weather. Night is not weather, but it is visibility. And it does call for a different way to approach driving. And some of the statistics and some of the facts that we have will kind of tend to lean us in a direction of how we should approach driving at night. So let's kind of go bullet by bullet here about nighttime driving. As the sun sets, okay, by law, we're supposed to have our headlights on, and this is the very last bullet. So I'm going to take the last bullet first. Okay, we're going to do this kind of backwards here. I will test you on this. I will guarantee this is going to be on the final. This question is guaranteed on the final. You have to have your headlights on a half hour after sunset to a half hour before sunrise. And any time that your vision is limited, so that means snow, rain, fog, you've got to have your headlights on. Now, a lot of people say, why a half hour? Why not an hour? I think you should have your lights on all the time. But if you're going to just wait till it gets a little bit dark, the sun sets below the horizon. It's still going to be light out until the sun goes a half hour down below the horizon. At that point, legally, you have to have your lights on from nighttime till morning. So on a test, you may see a question like this: when should you put your headlights on? And the possible answers may sound something like this: a half hour before sunset to a half hour after sunrise. Or is the answer 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise? Or is it 1/2 hour before sunrise to 1/2 hour after sunset? So they're going to be screwing around with the time frame and putting sunset and sunrise in different spots. So it's going to confuse you. So always remember it's going to be a half hour and you're doing it from nighttime till morning. Now I know it says after sunset. Some people like the terminology dusk and dawn. It means the same thing. You should be able to figure that out. So back up at the top, when it talks about fatal crash rates, and it's 3 times greater at night than during the day. So a whole lot more people are having problems driving at night. And the biggest problem, and this is what I want you to write down, it's your night vision. You don't see as well. So you don't change your speed, you don't change your position on the roadway, and you get into trouble. This is the main reason why people can't navigate around corners and they don't see well at intersections. It's because it's too dark. They don't see what's coming. Or if something kind of wanders out into the road like an animal, how are you going to handle that at a high rate of speed? See, during the day, we get to see with our peripheral vision a lot better, so we can see maybe some movement off to the side. And before it gets into our path of travel, we've already started to change our speed and change our position. Now, the other thing I want you to think about with nighttime driving, there are 3 categories of people that are having some real issues with driving at night. That is the elderly. Okay, as you get older, your eyes do tend to get worse. So elderly people don't drive that well at night. Drunk drivers, which we're going to be talking about tonight, so drunk or impaired drivers. And the last group of people that are having issues is your age group, young people. Young people would be included in that fatality rate. It's because you still like driving at extreme speeds on back roads and you don't see where the road's going and you can't keep the car on the road. Okay, those are the 3 situations that are, or 3 groups of people that are having issues. Overdriving your headlights basically mean by the time that your headlights illuminate a pothole or an animal, you need a certain distance to stop. But because your headlights only shine about 100 feet on low beam, 350 feet on high beam, that still isn't what you see during the day. During the day, you're looking, 20, 30 seconds down the road, maybe a quarter of a mile. At nighttime, you're going to be limited to less than, an eighth of a mile. So that's why you have to have better reflexes and lower speeds in order to drive well at night. And this is another reason why the state requires you to do 10 hours of driving at night before you go for your driver's test. Because 30, 40 years ago in driver's ed, that was not a requirement. You could actually have a valid driver's license, go for your driver's test. Let's say tomorrow, you go get your driver's license and you get in your car, and the first time that you drive at night, it's all by yourself. And now you just can't see as well. You're starting to go, oh my goodness, this is, like the road is coming in on me. I don't have that open area to see what is happening. So let's take a look at some key factors. Look to the right edge of the road when cars are coming towards you with glare. Lower speeds with corners and hills. Check mirrors more often. Make sure your mirrors are adjusted so you don't get the glare of headlights coming behind you, hitting you square in the eye. You can actually kind of adjust the day-night mirror. I think these are some of the things I've got on the next bullet here. Yeah, the day-night adjustment on the mirrors will help with the glare. Shifting to the right side of the road, the fog line is what you want to do with cars that are coming towards you. Highway hypnosis, which is what we call fatigue, and I'm going to snap out of here for a second, is that highway fatigue basically means you're driving for a distance, and because you've been up a long time, and your body is saying, go to sleep, and we'll talk more about when that time is going to be, is that your eyes start to close. Now, when your eyes close when you drive, you're probably able to keep your car centered on the roadway. But I will tell you this for a fact. When you close your eyes once, the next time that you do it, it's going to be a little bit longer. And before you know it, you're going to have one of these. The nods. I think we've all been there where you're trying to focus, you really are trying to stay awake, and then all of a sudden the head dips down, it gets to a certain area, and then it kicks back up. Most people try to fight it. Okay, I'll go back to the slide. Most people try to fight it. It happens more often than you think. When I was in college, I dozed off behind the wheel of a car and I went off to the soft shoulder. Luckily, I did not hit anything. No trees, only bushes, but it scares the crap out of you. It really does, because you think that you can control it. You think that it's not that big of a deal. And before you know it, the car is starting to shake and you hear all the dirt being kicked up by the tires. And I was fortunate. I went off to the right. A lot of people, when they drive, let me go back here. A lot of time when you drive, if you only drive with one hand, that one hand becomes heavy. And I'm a right hand dominant person. When I drive, for whatever reason, long distances, my hands are a little off centered. So I'm a little bit higher on one end and a little bit down on the other. So the dominant hand came down and it pulled me off to the side of the road. If it would have gone the other way, who knows what kind of damage that I would have done. Let's take a look at driving at night first, then we'll talk more about fatigue.
From sunrise to sunset, drivers have a huge advantage in the sun. Although it's easy to take for granted, the sun makes it immensely easier for us to see.
Once darkness falls, driving becomes a whole new ballgame. There's no doubt about it. Driving is a lot dicier after the sun goes down.
Driving at night does present a whole new set of circumstances for any driver, young driver or an older driver.
Darkness itself is a hazard. Even people with the best of vision cannot see as well at night. To begin with, your field of vision is less. You actually see a smaller amount of space. Objects are not as sharp, you can't perceive dips and rises as well, and you have a harder time distinguishing colors.
A person with excellent vision still needs to remember to slow down and be aware of all the hazards that could present itself at night.
You can only see as far ahead as your headlights shine. That makes it harder to see pedestrians, cyclists, animals, obstacles in the road. So go slowly enough so that you can stop within the distance lighted by your headlights. If it's safe, use your high beams, especially on open highways. But always know when to change to low beams. If you approach another car from behind, or if you meet an oncoming car, then switch to low beams. High beams blind other drivers and increase the likelihood of a crash. To avoid being blinded, don't look directly at oncoming headlights. Instead, look to the right edge of your lane and watch the oncoming car out of the corner of your eye.
A couple of other brief points. Never drive with just your parking lights on. Parking lights are designed for parking. They're not a substitute for headlights. And keep your windshield and your headlights clean. They can get real dirty real quick. It's easy enough to do. I give them a quick wipe when I'm at the gas station. It helps reduce glare, it helps the lights to shine brighter, and in general, it helps you to see much better at night.
This is Jim Angelo.
So that's driving tips for driving at night. And I think they're very, very helpful. Back to fatigue, just to wrap this up. The hours between midnight and 6 and mid-afternoon are when we find that most people have their issues. What I'd like you to do right now, and I want you to do this by texting me. We didn't do much for questions last night. I just kind of went through the material. But tonight I want more interaction with you. I want you to text me the time that you normally, on a Monday through Friday school night, would tend to go to bed. All right? So I'm going to continue to talk. So I want you to text just a time, 10 o'clock, 10:30, and I'll get back to why that's so important. The most important thing is when you know that you're starting to nod off is to pull over to the side of the road, get some rest. That's the best. Or switch drivers. Now, there are other ways to fight fatigue while you're driving. Introduce caffeine into your system. That caffeine will keep you awake for a little bit. Sugar will help. So fruit, candy, energy drinks are good. Talking to people, so when you're not responding, they know that you're probably falling asleep. Open the window and have cold air. Never try not to be warm. When you're warm and comfortable, it's like a warm bed. You're going to want to nod off. But when you're really cold, have wind coming in, on your face, you're more apt to be paying attention. I will tell you, like I said earlier, this will happen to all of you at some point in your driving career, because we all find ourselves, and usually it's on a longer drive. Usually when you at least have a half hour to an hour drive, it's not going to be for a short trip, around town or home from school. But when you're driving at least an hour, I would say, or more, and I see everybody's texting me now, and I appreciate that. I think I'm going to really help you out on how to handle this, okay? What I want you to do in your notes is add a half hour to the time that you just text in. And I want you to circle that and put a little star next to it. If you have to drive, let's just say, I think I saw someone that just came in, I think 10:30. So 10:30, you try to go to bed. Your body wants to sleep at that point. If you're out driving on a Friday, Saturday night, let's say at 11, and you still have a half hour plus to drive, you're going to be nodding off. Your eyes are going to be closing every once in a while, sporadically, and you're going to be yawning to get more oxygen into your system. And by the way, that's the only reason why you yawn. You yawn to get oxygen into your system. You're going to be nodding off. And it's real. It really is real. Let me show you a little clip on how college students have an issue when they pull these all-nighters studying for mid-exams.
Back at 7:44 this morning on Today investigates a serious hazard facing young drivers that is often overlooked. NBC's senior investigative correspondent Lisa Myers is in Bethesda, Maryland with details. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Meredith. We're talking about driving while tired. We've all done it, but experts say it's particularly dangerous for teens. Fatigue is a factor in at least 100,000 crashes every year, and most of those involve young drivers who get behind the wheel when they're drowsy and never make it home.
I sit and I replay that night over and over and over again, and I thought, I'm just so close to home. I can make it.
That night, Rusty Burris was 18 years old with a bright future. But driving home from his girlfriend's house, his life changed forever.
I knew I was tired, but I didn't really feel that I was that tired. And driving home, I got just a mile from home and fell asleep at the wheel.
In seconds, Rusty's car drifted off this country road and rolled over. The impact crushed his roof and his spine. Rusty would never walk again.
I've fallen asleep and crashed my car one time, and that's all it took.
Experts say every day, millions of teens are dangerously tired when they get behind the wheel. More than a third of teens say they drive drowsy on a regular basis, and more than half of all fatigue-related crashes involve drivers under 25.
It's a huge problem, and it's probably bigger now than it was in the past.
Tom Balkin is president of the National Sleep Foundation. He says adolescents go through changes in their circadian rhythms that make it nearly impossible for them to fall asleep before 11 p.m. Combine that with early morning classes, after-school jobs, and late-night socializing, and it's easy to see why teens are chronically sleep-deprived.
The average college student needs about 8.5 to 9.5 hours of sleep. Virtually none of them get that. In fact, they average 6 hours of sleep per night.
So how can fatigue affect their driving?
Today's show, how may I help you?
To find out, we set up an unscientific experiment with 3 Today Show interns, Patrick, Meredith, and Brian, all college students who habitually drive after not much sleep.
Last summer, I was driving tired almost every day.
When it's final season, there's no sleep. That's when the drowsy driving starts to kick in.
For our experiment, we kept our kids up for an entire night, no naps or caffeine. Experts told us that would simulate the level of fatigue students typically suffer after a week of insufficient sleep.
You don't want to hit a cone.
Then we brought them here to the Skip Barber Driving School in Connecticut, where with safety instructors by their side, we put them through 2 road tests, a tight, twisty loop, and an emergency lane change.
We're testing today their ability to instantaneously react to an unexpected situation.
Hitting any cones would be the equivalent of a crash in the real world. The day before, all 3 had driven these courses wide awake and aced them.
I haven't hit any cones, and I think it's not that hard.
I feel pretty confident. Once you got the hang of it, it wasn't that bad.
But watch the difference when they're drowsy. Our kids swerve wildly through turns, hitting cone after cone after cone.
If that had been a real-world situation, he would have had a pretty violent crash.
Inside the car, you'd never know it. Even as they crash, our drowsy students remain slack-jawed and dazed. Patrick clearly is giddy. He almost seems drunk.
In many ways, driving drowsy is very much like driving drunk.
We showed the video to Tom Balkin, our sleep expert. He says drowsiness, like alcohol, can severely impair a driver's reflexes, judgment, and awareness. Should parents be as worried about kids driving when they're too tired as they are about them texting while driving or driving drunk?
Absolutely.
Especially, he says, on long, boring roads like the one where Rusty crashed. So we also tested our kids on this monotonous 2-mile track, each driving it for half an hour.
At first I thought I did okay. I thought I was in control.
But their dead stares tell a different story. Balkin says these are signs of a dangerous condition called microsleeps, where your eyes stay open, but your brain is falling asleep.
And this is the kind of situation where anything unexpected actually could throw them.
Like these surprise cones. We put them up on our kids' final lap to simulate a stopped car or a person unexpectedly in their path. Before the test, we made sure an alert driver could easily stop in time. But watch our drowsy kids.
Whoa.
They're so disoriented, they barely hit the brakes.
Whoa, okay, that was fun. I just killed somebody, didn't I?
Imagine if that cone had been someone's pet or child.
After I sat there for a minute and realized what I did, that's a tough pill to swallow.
That was an eye-opener because that thing that you never know is going to happen that will just come out of nowhere. That's what you have to be prepared for. And if you're tired, you might not be.
A realization that came too late for Rusty Burris.
When you're tired, stop. Don't push it. Because even though you've only got a mile left, you could be throwing your entire life away trying to drive 1 more mile.
So I really think it's telling the example that they gave of driving, as I told you, a half hour after you normally go to sleep, your body wants to shut down. So even though you are awake, your mind is being lulled to sleep. So you're keeping the car on the road, but if something drifts out in front of you, like a dog or a child, like they said, all 3 of them, did you notice that? All 3 of them could not stop for those cones. And it's so hard when we fill out an accident report, what the cause of the accident is. You're not under the influence of alcohol or drugs. You weren't going too fast. It's just that your mind slowed down your reactions. You couldn't get to the brake quick enough. This is why driving while fatigued is so dangerous, is because you think you're okay if everything is normal. But when things are not normal, like a sharp corner, like you even saw earlier, you're not able to keep your position. And surprisingly, when I drive with some students Saturday morning, I always find those that take the 8 o'clock, and if I find out that they stayed up till 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, that when they drive at 8, they're not their best. And I can tell, just like we saw in the video, they're going all over the place. So don't take an early drive time if you're going to stay up late. Or if you're going to drive early, make sure you go to bed early the night that you're going to drive. The other thing I want you to write down, and I didn't talk about this, is that your behavior behind the wheel of the car when you're fatigued looks like a drunk driver. So write that down. Fatigue driving mimics or looks like drunk driving. So you're gonna swerve, you're gonna sway in your turns, you're gonna overshoot your stop lines, you may run red lights because you think that you have enough time to stop and then you don't, and you go right through, and the police are gonna think you're drunk. In reality, you're just tired. So the last thing I want to just mention here is that all the things that we talked about yesterday and a little bit tonight, you're going to experience some of these situations well after you get your license for the first time. So hopefully you're going to be able to recall some of the things that we talked about, some of the things that you read about, to recall when it's time to make it happen behind the wheel of the car. And don't be surprised if you aren't perfect when it comes to driving in snow or driving in rain. As long as the problems aren't major ones, you don't want to basically have a car crash. So the second bullet is know your driving skill. Okay, be very careful about driving in some of these bad weather situations. Start it out maybe only a 10, 15-minute drive. Don't make it where it's a half hour to an hour, because there's more likelihood things are going to go bad. So don't be a hero. Know when you shouldn't be driving. So you should always practice safety at all times. So be very extra cautious. And even though a crash may not be your fault, it can still affect you physically and emotionally for a while when you get behind the wheel of the car. It is very traumatic being involved in a crash. Your mind kind of flashes back to that time when you got hit or you hit somebody, and it does freak you out for a little bit. But, driving is part of life. You're going to have to get back in the car and just keep working at it. And just learn from your mistakes. As long as nobody was injured or killed, I think you're having a good day. Okay, so cars can be replaced, and we're going to talk more about insurance next week. All right, so that takes care of driving in bad weather. So let's talk about alcohol and drugs. So what I want you to do in your notes, I want you to draw 2 circles. Okay, in one circle, I want you to write the word driving. In the other circle, I want you to write the word drinking. All right? So, driving and drinking. In the state of New Hampshire, you cannot receive a driver's license under the age of 18 unless you've taken a driver's ed class. Or if you're an international student, we've got 2 international students, you're required to take driver's ed. So, your driving career is now starting just prior to your 16th birthday, and some of you are already 16 or a little bit older. So you're relatively new at driving. And the way that you drive now is not going to be the way that you drive a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Okay? This is only the beginning. You will get better, a lot better. Now, drinking, okay, that's regulated by law, just like driving in New Hampshire is. Under 18, you got to take driver's ed. Drinking doesn't take place in New Hampshire or any state in the U.S. until you are legally able to drink at the age of 21. So those 2 circles, those 2 situations that are going to be part of your lifetime, possibly, is separated by a 5-year span. So you may say, why, Mr. Toll, are we talking about drinking and driving? Wouldn't it make more sense if we kind of talked about it when I'm 20, just before I turn 21, so I don't make some of these mistakes getting behind the wheel of a car? Why are you telling this to me now that I'm 16? You would have to be a fool if you think that any adult doesn't think that young people in high school or even junior high, matter of fact, okay, experiment with alcohol and other types of drugs. It's available. It's not legal, but it's available. There was a survey, or they take a survey almost every year or 2 years in the state of New Hampshire. What is the first experience that most people have with alcohol? And what we have found over the years, and it stays pretty true, 12 to 13 is when most people will have their first experiment with alcohol. I'm not talking about getting drunk. I'm not talking about, sitting down with a 6-pack and drinking, I'm just talking about having a sip of alcohol, a couple sips of alcohol, or at least trying it. Never had it up to that point, but now they're introducing it into their lifestyle. 12 or 13, that's pretty young. So what I want you to do, okay, underneath those two circles, I got two other words. One is why and one is why not. So I told you you're going to have to participate tonight in class. So I don't want this on the comment section, okay, of YouTube. What I want you to write down is I want you to give me 2 to 3 reasons why you think people drink alcohol. Because I want you to think about this. There's only 2 things that a human needs to survive when it comes to fluids. There are only 2 fluids that you need. You can go your entire life and never go beyond these 2 fluids. That is your mother's milk as an infant, and you could go a lifetime just with water. You need water. That's it. You don't need anything else. You don't need orange juice. You don't need coffee. You don't need tea. You don't need milkshakes. Those are good, but you only need water. So why do we introduce alcohol into our system? All right, so I want you to give me 2 reasons why you think people drink and give me 2 reasons why you think people do not drink. So text me those situations where you think it happens. And before we get to that, I want to show you this. Let's see if I can find it. Let's get right to this. Is our first topic: alcohol, drugs, and driving. What should I know and why? Here we go. Let's go with the first time.
Have a shot.
Here, drink some of this.
Have a shot.
First time you do it, you put yourself at risk because it takes a toll.
I drink to experiment and also to relieve stress.
There's always a reason to do it. I'm stressed. I don't like my parents.
Everyone that goes to public school does monkey see, monkey do. You just want to fit in and you just want to try that out. Why is everybody else doing it? There must be something great about it.
I was 14 years old when I tried weed with my friends.
She had done it before I did, and she showed me and she said it was okay to do it, and she liked it, and I tried it.
It was just a new feeling that I needed to explore further.
I started thinking if I only drank on the weekends, I wouldn't get addicted to drinking.
But I don't think I'll get addicted or to any type of drug.
In the beginning, I felt like I was controlling it, but after that, it got out of control. Like as I said before, I was high for 6 months.
It was every day. I'd be back there in the alley smoking weed with everybody else.
I drank so much that I started throwing up my stomach lining.
My health deteriorated. I've lost homes. I've never been able to hold a job. I've lived on the streets.
I ended up losing my scholarship in college.
Everything I wanted to be just went down the drain.
I could justify using in order to enjoy myself and other things.
Just felt like I was dying.
They opened the door for us and she was dead on the bed with the needle in her arm.
Gave him a shot of adrenaline to his heart, flatlined and killed him right there.
But when it's all over, only person that's paying the price is you.
Okay, a lot of people text in a lot of good reasons why people drink. Don't forget to also include the reasons why people do not. So let's kind of go through some of them that we see every class reoccurring. They want to be social. They want to feel relaxed. Family members, ask them to drink. Religion, I guess, like communion, just to have fun. We hear the people, reasons why people drink. It's because they're thirsty. You don't see that often. They like the taste. Everything that you do in life, I want you to think about this. Everything that you do in life, there's a reason why. There's a reason why you pick out the color shoes that you have. There's a reason why you pick out the college that you want to go to. Everything that causes you to reason between things, there's an underlying factor. So you've got to, start to look at, if you are under the age of 21, what is the reason why you would want to try alcohol or drugs? We can include that too. Is it to experiment, to see if it's that big of a deal? You want to fit in? Is it peer pressure? Now remember, peer pressure can be positive as well as negative. Everybody thinks peer pressure is negative. It's only negative if they're pushing you to do something that you normally wouldn't do on your own. It's like jumping off a bridge that's like 20 feet. Okay, normally if you're all by yourself going swimming, you never say to yourself, I'm going to go to a bridge and jump off a 20-foot bridge. But you get 3 or 4 of your best friends, and they go, oh, come on, I just did it, you do it. And all of a sudden you're thinking, well, if they did it, it can't be that bad. Must not hurt. They're still here, talking to me about it. I don't want to be the one person that doesn't do it out of the group. And alcohol and drugs will be the same way. But you need to surround yourself with people that are going to keep you away from making decisions that you normally wouldn't do. So if you're an athlete at Oyster River, I'm sure none of your coaches would be happy to know that you're out doing alcohol or drugs. So if you're around friends that are saying, hey, if coach ever finds out, you're going to get kicked off the team. They're pulling you in the other direction. You're going to have people pulling you in the opposite direction. Always surround yourself around people that have your best interest at heart. Never give in to something that you normally wouldn't do. And if you really are being stressed with what to do, I would say take the night off from making that decision and think about it a couple days, and then revisit whether you're going to go out drinking or if you're going to do drugs. Okay, I will tell you right now, there's nothing that's going to unravel your life faster at this age, under the age of 21, is drinking and driving. If you ever get stopped under the influence of alcohol or in the possession of alcohol, there is a ton of things that are going to come down on top of your head. And it's going to be so hard to dig yourself out from a hole. Not that you can't, but it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult. And your life can change on one bad decision when it comes to drinking and drugging, getting behind the wheel. It could totally change the whole outcome of your life. All right? Now, reasons why not. Religion, family, addiction, don't like the taste, don't want to get sick. How many people do you know that have drank alcohol and they threw up? Doesn't that sound like fun? Let's go out in the woods with a whole bunch of alcohol and let's drink so much that we just puke our guts out. Now that's a good time. Not, okay? But people will tell you it is. Hangover's no fun, okay? It does not feel good the next day. You can prevent yourself from finding yourself into those kind of situations. Okay, if you've taken a health class, I know this is going to be somewhat what you've already covered, so I just want to kind of just touch on it real briefly just to give it a little twist to the driving aspect of alcohol. So what I want you to write down is alcohol is a drug. It is a depressant. It slows down the central nervous system. It slows down how you react to what is happening around you. And when you're driving, you need to be at your best. Anytime that you're less than your best, even with the fatigue that we just talked about, you're less than your best. You probably shouldn't be behind the wheel of the car. So alcohol and drugs do not improve driving. I will argue and debate anybody that tells me that marijuana makes them a better driver. It does not. It makes you think that you are. You may be more relaxed and you're not as stressed out, but basically it's just that you don't care. So you're going to be going past speed limits and you don't even know what they are. And there is no real benefit of alcohol. There's no minerals, vitamins, anything necessary for maintenance and growth of your body. Alcohol is just pure calories. And this is why you see grown men with beer bellies, is because they drink in excess of alcohol. You don't have to write this down. This is a lot, but I do want to kind of touch on a few things here, just so that you have a basic understanding. The minute you take a sip of alcohol, I'm going to get out of here for just a second because I have my seltzer with me tonight. So this is what I usually drink when I'm teaching class. Just when you watch a movie, I'm just kind of coating my throat with this. The minute you take a sip, and if that's alcohol, I am going to give off an odor of alcohol. So there's a lot of young people that think they've only had a couple swigs and they're not drunk, which you're probably right. But if you run a stop sign and you're going too fast and a police officer comes up to the car and he knocks on the window and you roll down your window and you're talking to the police officer, he's going to smell that. He's going to smell that. Now it's not just running a stop sign. He thinks that you're under the influence. So he's going to grab you out of the car and he's going to give you a field sobriety test. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But you've got to realize you just opened up a can of worms, even though you've only had a couple drinks. Now, I know after about 15 minutes or so, it's probably going to dissipate. It's not going to be that strong of an odor, but it's going to be strong enough if you do drink one or two drinks that it's going to stay with you. And I don't know about you, but I like going to Red Sox games. And I will tell you, there's not a summer that goes by that I go to a Red Sox game that I'm sitting next to somebody that is drinking in excess. And even their perspiration smells like alcohol. You can tell. Same thing with smoking weed or smoking a cigarette. You don't smell the smoke on your clothes. Everybody else does. So don't think that you're the smartest person in the room when it comes to getting behind the wheel of the car and fooling the police or fooling your parents. So the minute you put it into your mouth, people are going to know something's going on. Now, once it goes to the stomach, now most people think once it goes to the stomach, it goes right to the brain. It does not. Okay? If you drink too much alcohol, they need to pump your stomach to get the remainder of the alcohol that's not absorbed into the bloodstream out, because they don't want the BAC or blood alcohol level to go higher. They want it to go lower, so they pump your stomach. They don't pump your liver. They don't pump your small intestines. We want to get that alcohol out of your stomach. But the key here with the stomach, it's a holding tank. And at the bottom of your stomach, there's a little valve that will open up and allow alcohol to seep into the small intestine. Now, once it gets into the small intestine, then it's going to go into the body. You're really going to feel the effects of it. So, and think about this. Your body, let me click out of here again. I'm going to click back and forth a lot. The reason why you get sick drinking alcohol, and it could be a little bit because there's an irritation, a burning sensation, but for the most part, the human body has been trained, the way we've been made, that when we have too much alcohol into our system, our body wants to purge it and wants to get it out because they know that you're being sedated. They know that you're being lulled. And by the way, we're going to see this in a moment. You can drink yourself to death. Now, this always comes up in the class. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story. One of my best friends in high school, started drinking when he was in high school. His dad was an alcoholic, so he followed in his dad's footsteps. He died drowning in his own vomit because he was an alcoholic. There's some really bad stuff that goes on when you go to the point where you need alcohol every single day. And that's where addiction takes place. And by the way, you can't really tell right off because I couldn't tell. He was my best friend. We were the same. We did everything together. But the more you introduce alcohol or drugs into your system, the more your body's going to rely on it. So it was really sad to find out that's how he passed, being an alcoholic that way. Alcohol goes into the bloodstream, goes through all parts of the body. What I want you to write down is the liver is your oxidation organ. It basically burns up alcohol. It cleans your blood, okay? Your liver cleans your blood. That's what I want you to write down. Alcohol is cleaned by the liver, 1 drink, 1 hour. That's the simplest way to do it. It's really a little bit more involved than that. The different percentages and the half ounce of alcohol, you're going to have a hard time remembering that. But just remember, 1 drink, 1 hour. And before we go a little bit further, I want you to write this down. And I should have made a slide for this, but when I talk about drinking and drinking a serving of alcohol, I want you to know that a serving of alcohol is a 12-ounce can of beer, a 5 to 6 ounce glass of wine, or a shot of hard liquor. Okay? So a shot of liquor, which is about an ounce, ounce and a half, 5 to 6 ounces of wine, 12 ounces of beer is considered a serving. So they all have the same percentage, or it comes out to the same percentage of alcohol. All right? It's a really complicated thing. Hard liquor, you get drunk a lot quicker because there's less volume, so people consume it a lot quicker. When you drink a 12-ounce beer, after 3 or 4, you may get really full and you may not want to put any more in your system. Maybe a little bit more difficult to do. So that does go into intoxication levels too. Whoop, I don't need that. Why is that? Oh, I didn't lock it. There we go. I also want you to write down that alcohol gets to the brain in about 20 to 40 minutes. Okay? So let's take a look at the brain.
It may be legal, but it is still a drug. Be safe, be sensible, know your limit. Alcohol is a drug too. Think before you drink. Your body belongs to you. The purpose of this presentation is to help you understand the impact that alcohol has on your brain and the damage it can do. Our goal is to provide you with information which will enable you to make informed choices in relation to safe alcohol consumption. Did you know? Healthy people metabolize alcohol at a fairly consistent rate. As a rule of thumb, a person will eliminate 1 standard drink or 10 mils of alcohol per hour. And remember, it's not how many drinks you have, but how much alcohol you consume. Several factors influence this rate, including gender, age, height, weight, general health, the presence of food in the stomach, the concentration of alcohol in the drink, and prescription or illicit drugs taken by the person. It's the blood alcohol concentration, or BAC, which is the key to why we are affected by alcohol. Basically, your blood alcohol concentration is the relationship between the total amount of alcohol in your system divided by total body water, because alcohol is dissolved and diluted in water. So that's also why drinking lots of water with any alcohol consumption is a really good thing. The BAC and the effects of alcohol go up when the body is taking in alcohol faster than it can metabolize it. For example, if you binge drink and consume a 750ml bottle of rum or 3 bottles of wine, that's around 26 standard drinks, between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m, your body will need until sometime around 6 p.m. the next day to process and get rid of the alcohol. And that's why driving or operating equipment the next day is not only illegal, but just crazy, particularly when you consider what this is doing to your brain. Let me explain. Alcohol enters the body and ends up in the stomach, at which point about 20% is absorbed immediately, and the other 80% is absorbed in the small intestine. The heart then pumps the absorbed alcohol to every part of the body, including the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and spinal cord, and it gets to the brain really fast. So that's why even after just 1 drink you can feel lightheaded or relaxed. Alcohol acts primarily on the nerve cells within the brain and interferes with communication between nerve cells and all other cells, slowing everything down. And that's why when we drink even a little, we experience the effects of alcohol on our emotions, judgment, balance, memory, speech, and anger levels, just to name a few. Did you know that your brain is still developing until you're around 20 to 25? So we need to be really careful because alcohol can do some irreversible damage to various parts of our brains. For example, drinking affects the cerebral cortex, which controls our senses, and inhibitory centers, which is why when you drink, you become more talkative, more self-confident, and less socially inhibited. It also controls our thought processes, so alcohol affects our ability to make good judgment or think clearly. The brain's frontal lobes are important for planning, forming ideas, making decisions, and using self-control. So when alcohol affects the frontal lobes of the brain, you may find it hard to control emotions and urges, and you may act without thinking, and even sometimes become violent or act completely out of character. Does this sound familiar? The cerebellum is important for coordination, thinking, and being aware. So again, you may have trouble with these skills when alcohol affects the cerebellum. That's why people affected by alcohol sometimes can't walk properly or lose their balance and fall. The hippocampus is the part of the brain where memories are made. So when alcohol reaches the hippocampus, you may have trouble remembering something you just heard, or even worse, have a blackout and not be able to remember what you did last night. If alcohol damages the hippocampus, you may find it hard to learn or remember things in the future. The hypothalamus is a small part of the brain that does an amazing number of the body's housekeeping chores. After a person drinks alcohol, blood pressure, hunger, thirst, and the urge to urinate increases, while body temperature and heart rate decreases. And finally, the medulla controls the body's automatic actions, such as your heartbeat. It also keeps the body at the right temperature. Because alcohol chills the body, drinking a lot of alcohol outdoors in cold weather can cause a person's body temperature to fall below normal. This dangerous condition is called hypothermia. Your body belongs to you. Get the facts. Alcohol is unsafe for the developing brain. Alcohol can damage your brain forever. The long-term functioning and health of your brain depends on the choices you make today. Your responsible attitude toward alcohol can have a positive influence on your friends and family. Take care of it. It's the only one you have.
There, can you hear me now? Oh, goodness. Every time I show a movie and I sit down and step back up to teach and touch my mic, it shorts it out. So that's why there was a little bit of a gap. I want to explain four categories of types of people when it comes to addiction. And I want you to write this down so you have a basic understanding of how this works and how addiction works. Is, as I said earlier, that your body only needs your mother's milk and water. So there are a lot of people that never use alcohol or drugs their entire life. I mean, they just never do. So those are the non-users. Then this is why I'm talking to you and why we have this segment in Driver's Ed, why you have it in high school and junior high, is the social aspect of alcohol. Maybe your parents drink alcohol. It's purely legal in every state. People can do it. And they never have a problem with it. So these are what we call social drinkers. They stay within this category. They only have, a certain amount. They never get where they do not slur their speech or, start to sway. They never have any arguments, while they've been drinking. They don't have any DWIs. They don't, lose, time with work, meaning that they have to call out sick because of their drinking. So that's social. The next category of people I want you to write down is problem drinkers. Problem drinkers is anybody that when they drink, they have problems. It makes sense. That's why they call them problem drinkers. So these are people that do get into fights. They get into arguments a lot when they've been drinking. They break things. They call in sick to work. They don't go to school. May drop out of school. They may have a DWI. So it really affects their life. Okay, these are problem drinkers. And then the last category of people are your addicts, your alcoholics and addicts. And what I'm trying to show you here between the non-user, social, problem, alcoholic, it is a continuum. It's a continuum where you start one place and you end up someplace you never thought you would go. Most alcoholics and problem drinkers will tell you, I never thought my life would turn out this way. I have no idea why my life unraveled like it did. But the drug gets a hold of you, and it just and you're not going to be able to separate driving with drugging. It's just a part of your life. When you get your license, you've got to get to work, you've got to get to school. It gets you places. And people don't think in their head, you know, I'm not the best person to get behind the wheel right now. They just know I've been drinking, I got to get to work. You know, I've just shot up on heroin. I've got to go pick up my kid. No lie, there are people that have fallen asleep behind the wheel of the car from a drug overdose at a traffic light. I've seen it twice. The light is green and the car is not moving, and you pull up next to the car and the person is passed out. Luckily, they stayed on the brake pedal, but they are hunched over the steering wheel. And it was a young person, so it wasn't like, oh, it might be a heart attack. No, it was a young person. And later in the paper, you would read it was a heroin overdose. One time I saw it in Concord. The other time I saw it in Rochester. These people need help. Their life totally got out of control. So let's take a look at what is the truth. So this kind of ties in with the physical and the psychological aspects that we just learned. Well, let me just click out of here first. We have to eliminate alcohol. We burn it up, like I said, 1 hour per drink. We do lose some of the alcohol through our perspiration and urination and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's burning it up. And look at everything on your body that's being affected. The minute you put any type of chemical in your body, whether it be a prescribed drug by a doctor, like for high blood pressure, I have high blood pressure, it changes my blood. It changes my body, the chemistry of my body. That's what it's supposed to do. So when you put alcohol or any type of drug into your body, every single organ in your body is being affected by that chemical. And over time, it is going to deteriorate. It's not going to be optimum. So let's take a look at the truth of drinking.
Vodka,
Tequila,
scotch,
beer,
wine, rum,
gin,
whiskey,
alcohol. Alcohol probably took 20 years of my life, and you can't get that back.
Alcohol is a drug, which most people don't think it is, but it actually is. It's classed as a depressant, meaning it slows down vital functions in the body.
Alcohol is made through the fermentation of fruits and grains.
The process of fermentation is basically letting fruit sit and rot until it can produce a mind-altering effect when you drink it.
There's different types of things you can drink that have different amounts of alcohol in them. Like a beer, if you just drink beer, that has 2 to 6% alcohol. Wine is about 8 to 20% alcohol. And then you got your hard liquors, which are like vodka or whiskey, which are about 40 to 50% alcohol.
When someone drinks 2 or more drinks, it acts as a stimulant. When they drink more than that, it acts as a depressant.
If you binge drink, what you're doing is you're just drinking repeatedly over and over large amounts and large quantities of alcohol. If you put that much alcohol in your system at one time, you can get alcohol poisoning, which could lead you to go into a coma or even kill you.
12 years old. I was in the 7th grade.
When I was in 8th grade, I think I was 13 years old.
It became very regular at 14 years of age.
15 years old when I first started drinking.
17 years old, starting going out parties, doing things like that.
At first, drinking was a sociable thing, you know. I drank with my friends.
Thought I was really cool going out with all the older guys. and I'd try to show off in front of them and drink myself stupid. I'd just go out and party all night.
By the time I was probably 15 is where I started drinking at school. Putting it in a water bottle, I would take vodka or gin, something clear that looked like water, and I would just drink in class and pop mints in my mouth.
We'd go in, break into his parents' liquor cabinet, fill up our super big gulps full of ice and Everclear, and then stop by 7-Eleven and fill the rest of it up with Coke, and then make it to first period.
I was drinking not just at parties and stuff, but after classes and after work, and even at work.
I waited tables, so it was very easy access to alcohol.
It was just hard to say no. It was so readily available, and it was constantly there.
My drug problem wasn't something that happened immediately. It happened so slowly that I missed the fact that I was addicted to it.
It became routine, a way of life.
The only type of people I would hang out with were people who were using drugs or drinking alcohol. And it got to the point where that's all I cared about.
It became far more than just a partying thing. It was a necessity.
Without having alcohol in me, I could not function.
I kind of became a loner because all I ever wanted to do was just drink and drink and drink.
It felt like it was my only friend. Felt like that it was always there for me somewhere. You know, when things were going bad, I could always have a few drinks. Well, for me, it was never a few drinks. It was always a lot of drinks.
I was consuming about 30 beers a day, a whole case of beer, and 3/4 of a gallon of light rum. I would essentially have that and black out every night.
I could do nothing but drink 24/7, drink, pass out, drink, pass out.
I literally started drinking so much that I would shake if I didn't have a drink.
When I would not drink, I'd get extremely sick. Deathly sick.
Just really achy all over, and you have headaches, and you're so dehydrated that you have no energy.
Alcohol had been, in and out my body so much that it had tore away some of the lining of my esophagus, and blood was creeping in.
I was a physical disaster. I was that far in my addiction of physical withdrawal that when I shut that alcohol intake off, my body tried to shut down.
The actual withdrawal from alcohol can kill you, for one thing, if it's too intense. Your body has no vitamins, or it's dehydrated, and you can have DTs, you can seizure to death. That's terrible.
I got a phone call, that my father was in the hospital and that he was really, really sick, and that he wasn't going to make it. So the next day I got on a plane to go home, and my only way to confront this was to drink alcohol. So I showed up at the airport pretty drunk, and my family, saw me there, and, they didn't know what to say. The worst thing about it is that my father was kept conscious so that he could see me before he passed away. But instead of disgracing his memory, they'd put him on life support.
I had gotten kicked out of this bar for fighting. I was beyond drunk, and I was attacked and raped. And I went home, and I stayed in my apartment for a week. My mom would come knocking on the door. I'd pretend I wasn't home. I felt like it was my fault. I was the one that was at that bar. I was the one that was getting drunk.
I went home, and I had a roommate. And for some reason, we got into an argument, which resulted in a fight, and the cops got called. I blacked out for part of it, so I couldn't figure out why I was waking up in jail.
I drank some beer there at the bar inside the airport. I just ordered another beer and put my backpack on and started walking through the terminal smoking a cigarette. I didn't care what I was supposed to be doing, and I ended up getting a fight with the police there at the airport, and I woke up in jail. I had staples in my head.
In the military, I woke up and I actually had to crawl on my hands and knees off the flight deck of the carrier because I couldn't walk, and then I got discharged from that and lost a girlfriend and a kid and my whole life.
I drank to blackout one night. Well, sometime about an hour later, I got back up. I went to my bedroom. My wife wasn't there. I went to the girls' bedroom, and they were all in the bed together, basically hiding from me through a blackout. And I decided right then that I couldn't stay there anymore. I was afraid I was going to hurt someone at a blackout.
I haven't had a drink in 3 years, yet I'm reminded daily of my alcohol abuse because of the long-term effects. I have horrible short-term memory, and it makes everyday life very difficult for me. just remembering names, remembering how to do things.
As a result of alcohol, I had high blood pressure, and I still have it.
Destroys your internal organs, and I mean, it can destroy your brain functions, your handwriting, small motor skills. It's definitely a poison.
Have liver pains, bone and muscle aches that just used to not be there, and it's not from age. I'm not that old. I should be in my prime right now, and I've probably aged myself 20 years through alcohol abuse.
Alcohol is slow to kill, but it's the most hideous form of death. If I had known how sneaky and dangerous and insidious alcohol is, if somebody had kind of told me, and if I had known that it's not this symbol for a good time, I think that would have made a difference.
It's not like some of the other drugs that instantly after your first time you're hooked and you're addicted to it. A lot of times, you know, most of my friends didn't even like the taste of beer when they first started drinking.
It started out as something that was fun, something we did on weekends. How it progressed to an everyday, all-day thing is beyond me. I have no answer to that. I do not understand how that happened, but it did.
It's nothing but misery. The last 12, 13 years of my life, I've spent probably over $500,000, and over 4 or 5 years of that has been institutionalized, whether it be in a alcohol treatment rehab facility or, you know, incarcerated.
Alcohol is just as bad, if not worse, than heroin or barbiturates or anything else. I don't know, if 60% of people go out to drink and get drunk, chances are that they're going to lead to something else and they're going to end up on a downward spiral.
I may not be very old, but I have definitely seen some hellish things from alcohol. To be honest, I didn't think someone could get to the point that I was at my age. I thought that took years and years, but no, downward spiral.
It might seem fun at the beginning, but after you get stuck in that lifestyle for years, you realize how not fun it is. It's terrifying.
Kind of makes you think twice about maybe going out and drinking and making this part of your lifestyle. A couple things that really struck me when I first saw this, when I gave this DVD out to all the driving instructors in the state. For about 5 years, I ran the first offense driver's ed drunk driving school in New Hampshire. So in order to get your license back, we're going to talk about this tomorrow, but in order to get your license back after being convicted of drunk driving, you have to take an education, a drunk driving driver's ed class type of thing. And I kind of oversaw that for the state for about 5 years. So I got to meet a lot of people, just like what you just saw. And the stories that they would tell are just gut-wrenching. You felt so bad. I mean, they did some bad things behind the wheel of a car. A lot of people had injured people, killed people. But you can't not have compassion and feel for some of these people that really had no control over their addiction. But it really struck me when I heard one of the guys that says, I wish someone would have told us. Well, I think junior high, high school, health class, driver's ed, you probably had a message being told to you. You just don't remember it, or you didn't want to listen. So you have to kind of put into practice some of these, safe driving techniques of not finding yourself behind the wheel if you're going to do X, Y, Z, and especially with drugs. And the guy that said that he was, afraid of what he was going to do to his kids and his wife because he suffered from blackout, those kids are going to be traumatized of their dad. And the guy that said he spent about $500,000 all because of his drinking. That does not sound like a good time. So even though you're saying the reasons why people drink is to have fun, to be social, some people can't do that. It goes way, way beyond what they intended. So what I want to do right now is I want to go through the different stages of what the influence of alcohol will do to your body, so you'll have a basic understanding. And I'm not going to put down like after 3 drinks, because everybody is different. I want you to realize that men and female are different. Their body will oxidize or will have the effects of alcohol do different things to them, whether you're drinking on an empty stomach, whether you have experience with drinking. Your age has a lot to do with it. Your nationality. Some people are affected by alcohol a lot worse than others. But I don't want to get too much into that. I just want to stay with what the BAC level is. So in your notes, what I want you to write down is BAC stands for blood alcohol concentration or content. So when they pull you over for suspicion of drinking and driving, they want to know what is your level. Now, part of your homework, if you take a look at your sheet, it says about changing laws and articles. So what I want you to do, like we did with road rage, is we're going to talk more about the legal part, what's going to happen to you if you do get stopped tomorrow. But I want you to find a couple articles, 2 articles, dealing with a drunk driver and how bad was he behind the wheel. Was he just a little bit drunk, like just over the legal limit of 0.08? Or was he just flat out, crawling drunk, a 0.35? So there are different levels. So we're going to kind of go through the levels real quick. The first level I want you to write down is sobriety. So when we talk about your parents going out to eat and they're only having 1 or 2 drinks, they're fine. They can get behind the wheel of the car after they eat. They've been at the restaurant for an hour or 2 hours. They've only had 1 or 2 drinks. Their BAC level is not going to read anything much higher than what we have right here, a 0.01, a 0.05. So you really can't tell from their behavior by watching them whether they've had anything. You'd have to get pretty close to them to see if you could smell the odor of alcohol. And if they took any type of a breath test, it would probably show some type of a reading around a 0.01, 0.05. So that's sobriety. Now, the next thing I want you to write down is euphoria. So when people say that they drink to get buzzed or to feel good, this is the area they want to drink to. This could be 2, 3 drinks. For some people, it could be 5 or 6. If you're in the 200, 300 level, for some men, they're going to be drinking much more to feel this effect than someone that weighs 180 pounds. So euphoria means buzzed, means feel good. And notice it goes from 0.03 to 0.12. So it's different for different people. So this is a range. And by the way, you're above the legal limit at a 0.12. The legal limit in every single state is 0.08. All 50 states have the same legal limit. Now, when I say legal limit, it means that if you are drinking and you get to that level of 0.08 and they pull you over, has nothing to do whether you were speeding, running a stop sign. You just can't be out on the road. Let me put it this way. If the law said that you cannot have 3 cans of orange soda, and they knew that you had 3 cans of orange soda and you were out on the road, that means you were breaking their law of you're not supposed to be on the road with 3 cans of soda. So what they're saying is that if you're at a 0.08, you're not supposed to be out on the road. It has nothing to do with what you're driving. It just means that you have that in your system. But most of the time, your driving is going to be affected too, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. The next level gets really kind of dangerous. This is the excitement. This is the people that get in the car and drive really fast under the influence. These are the people that are running stop signs, traffic lights, going off the edge of the road. So they have decreased inhibitions, loss of critical judgment, impaired memory, decreased sensory response, and muscular incoordination. And the best way I can explain muscle incoordination is if you ever, and I'm going to get out of here for a second, if you've ever taken somebody out into like an open area and you told them to spin around real fast 10 times and then told them to walk a straight line, they're going to look like they're drunk. Now, when you take someone out of a vehicle, they've been driving down the road, you take them out of the vehicle and tell them to walk to the back of the vehicle, and they can't walk in a straight line, and they're dipping and they're losing their balance. Just remember, that was a person just a moment ago that was driving. That's crazy. If you can't walk to your car without staggering, why would you get in the car to drive it? Driving is all fine motor skills of your hands, your feet, and your eyes. When you get to this level, you definitely should not be behind the wheel of a car. So if you see any of your friends and they go, "Oh, I'm fine to drive," and you see that they can't walk very well. They don't remember where they parked. They're doing some pretty stupid stuff. Don't let them get behind the wheel of a car. Don't let them get behind. The best friend is going to be the one that stops someone from driving. And we'll talk more about what are some of your options. Some of the articles that you'll find will be at this level, 0.18 to 0.30. This is confusion. You're very disorientated. You're dizzy. Exaggerated emotional states. Altered sense of perception. Decreased sense of pain. These are college kids that are falling down steps, breaking bones, and they have no idea that they've just broken their leg. All night long, they still drink and hobble along. Oh, I just twisted my ankle. They go to the doctor next day. Oh, no, you broke it. They had no idea. Stupor is a 0.27, 0.40. And I will tell you right here, I want you to write this down in your notes. I want you to write down 911. That's the emergency number. If you see any of your friends that cannot respond to you calling them their name, if they do not answer you, if they cannot stand, if they cannot walk, they're just sitting in a chair, if they've like vomited all over themselves, if they peed their pants, messed themselves, they're at this level. They need medical help. Medical help. Not just to sleep it off. They need medical help. So a good friend will call 911 just to get help. Regardless of what the consequences are going to be, you're going to save your friend's life. There was a lawsuit probably about 2 years now, Penn State. And I think there's another case now. I think it's in Iowa. It happens a lot at fraternities. And it's so funny that we're having this talk tonight, and it's St. Patrick's Day. I'll tell you right now, if you're in Durham, and I know some of you live really close to downtown, I bet you right now, if you get in a vehicle, if your parents drive you around, or if you have a brother or sister that can drive you around, if you drove around Durham right now, I'll bet you anything you're going to see some intoxicated people that can't really stand too well. Okay, they're pretty bad off. St. Patrick's is just an excuse to drink. But these people right here, well, as I was saying, in the fraternities, they're suing the fraternity because a freshman, I believe it was Iowa, and this just happened like a month ago, that drank too much alcohol. Someone gave it to him. I know he's got some responsibility going on, but someone gave him the alcohol, bought him the alcohol, and he died at a fraternity. It was hazing. They kept on telling him, drink, drink, drink. You know, you're pledging our fraternity, drink. And he passed away from drinking. The next slide right here is coma, and the one right after this is death. You can drink yourself to death. No lie. Alcohol is the liquid form of ether. If you've ever been operated on, you know that they can't cut you open to operate because you're going to feel pain. So you don't feel pain. They give you an injection or give you some type of ether laughing gas or whatever to numb your body, your system, so you don't wake up in the middle of an operation and say, hey, what are you doing? They lull you to sleep. And the anesthesiologist stands over your head to make sure that your blood rate, pressure and your heart rate stays at a certain level. They keep you in that coma state that I've got up here. Because if they gave you any more, whatever they're giving you, if they gave you any more, they would kill you. All right? Alcohol is the liquid form of ether. This is why don't mess around with a high amount of alcohol. It's devastating. And you'd be surprised. Now, one of the articles that I found, let me show you this one. This is what I want you to find. This is an article I found back. This is 10 years old now. This woman has the highest BAC level on record in South Dakota. She blew a .708. She should have been dead. Very few people can drink to these extreme levels and still live. And this article, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll tell you the last couple sentences, is that she was arrested for that level. She was released. And later that week, she stole a van and she was behind the van drunk again. Part of the problem, and this is what I want you to do for your homework, part of the problem is these people get behind the wheel again. If they don't kill you the first time they're drinking and driving, it's going to be their second. And people that get stopped for drinking and driving, it's normally not their first time that they've ever done it. It's the first time that they were ever caught. So part of your homework is to do the 2 articles like this, and I want you to give me at least 2 or 3 paragraphs of what should we do to people that are caught drinking and driving. What can we do to get them off the road? What can we do to change their behavior so they don't do it again? So I do not want you to look at the state manual and say, I like what the state is doing. I think it's a good job. That is not acceptable. Your homework has to be change what is going on. All right? So give me a couple paragraphs. This is what I think they should do. This is what I think should be different. A longer of taking your license away, a bigger fine, more education, doing a victim impact panel. Give me some idea of what you think the changes should be. This is how bad some people can be and still drive. I am going to read this. A drunk driver hit a pole support wire that decapitated his passenger. So his passenger must have been having his head out the window, because this wouldn't happen if the window was up. So he had his head out the window because he was probably getting sick. So he decapitated his passenger. Then he drove 12 miles to his home. He slept in his bloody clothes, leaving the headless body in his truck. A neighbor discovered Daniel Brom's headless corpse in the truck driven by John Hutchinson's driveway, and they called authorities. So the trail of blood going down the road up into the driveway led the neighbors to what had happened. Officers found Hutchinson asleep in his home. He was hungover. They later found Brom's head near the pole where it happened. That's 12 miles from where this guy lives. 12 miles. That's a good distance. It's amazing he could even get home. He was charged with vehicular homicide, driving under the influence, and failure to stop. These are the types of articles. The only thing that's missing, I wanted to know what the BAC level was. That's what I want you to do, is I want you to find out what the BAC level is. Okay? But these are the people that are out on the road. This is what's happening. Now, I'm going to show you one last video. It's a very sad story. And we'll discuss it probably tomorrow, but I wanted to show it tonight so it gives you some idea of what type of article that I'm looking for. I think some of the saddest stories that I ever see for driver's ed deals with speed and alcohol. I guess texting and driving is getting bad too now, but between those 3, people speeding, having injuries or death, alcohol, drugs, with injuries or death, and the distracted driving, injuries or death. Those are the saddest stories. All these things should not be happening behind the wheel of a car. So this is called Jackie's story. I want you to listen to this.
Some roads take us home. Some roads take us places we've never been. Some roads and some choices take us places we would never want to go. One September night in 1999, a high school senior named Reggie Steffi took this 4-lane road to get home.
In high school, I was the all-American guy. Worked hard and had some hopes and dreams to keep going on the college level. But my senior year, after the 3rd football game of the season, I was out at a party one night.
I had a few beers. I was not falling down drunk and weaving all over the place. But it was more than enough to impairment.
It was enough to cause Reggie to cross head-on into an oncoming lane of traffic. His SUV struck a car with 5 people inside. 2 people in the car died instantly. 2 suffered broken bones, and another person was trapped inside when the car caught fire. Other than a few bruises, Reggie wasn't hurt, but a blood test showed he had been drinking. He was tried and convicted for causing the deaths of 2 young women while he was driving drunk.
I'm 23 years old now, and I've been in prison for 3.5 years. There were a lot of life lessons that you learn, and in prison you tend to learn them a little bit quicker, just valuing freedom. You don't have a telephone to call your mom or call your best friend. You don't have email to go back and forth and communicate instantly. When you don't have those things, you realize how important a lot of things are to your life and how much you take them for granted. And when they're gone, they're gone.
Jacqueline Saborito lost a lot that September night, too. She had come to Texas from her native Venezuela to improve her English. She was a passenger in the car that Reggie hit and was trapped in the burning wreckage. Somehow, she survived. Jackie lost her ears, her face, her hands, and her independence. She's had more than 50 operations. There are many more to come.
Sometimes the hardest thing for me to do in my life is fight with the depression, fight when I go out, and sometimes people look at me like an alien or something like that.
The crash totally changed Jackie's life. She fights pain every day. People point at her and stare. Her plans for college and a career are on hold. And inside a Texas prison, Reggie Steffi faces a life he never expected.
I hear a lot from my friends and what they're doing and where they've been and what's happening to them at college, and part of me misses that, misses what they're doing. My best friend just got married a few weeks ago, and seeing the pictures and seeing him and his bride and seeing everything that's changing and everybody else moving forward, and here I'm just kind of spinning my wheels in the same place, doing the same things every day, and everybody else is moving forward. It's a hard thing to deal with sometimes. You see everybody and everything changing around you, and there's really nothing you can do to stop it or to move along with them.
My second life, I could say, is completely different, completely. Of the 24 hours of the day, probably, I can say 1 or 2 hours. I'm pretty sad about my appearance, because I can say in those 2 hours, things that I couldn't do it with my hands, or when I get so warm inside my body because I can't sweat, or when I sit on the mirror, I get so sad.
I can't change it. I can't make it go away. And it's not something that I want to forget about. It's not something that I will ever forget about. Some people would want to and some people would try, but it's something that I live with every day. If you think ahead to what you're going to be doing, you can make the right decision. But once you've been out there drinking and partying, it does impair your judgment, and you may think differently, and you may think you're all right when you're really not, like I did. Looking back on September 19th, 1999, there are a number of things that I could have done to prevent this. The easiest is to not drink. Had I planned ahead and had someone sober with me, I wouldn't be in this situation. I could have called a cab and forked over $30 for a cab ride home and not been in this situation. I could have called my mom or my uncle and woke them up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't have been in this situation. 2 people would be alive, and Jacqueline would be about her life. And the easiest way to prevent that is decide who's driving tonight before you go to the party.
Reggie Steffi has been turned down for parole. He is scheduled to be released from prison in 2008 after spending 2,555 days behind bars. Jackie will spend the rest of her life recovering from injuries. She continues to speak out against the dangers of drinking and driving.
That's one of the saddest videos that I've had come across my desk for drunk driving. I later found out that Jackie has since passed away. She suffered cancer in her mid-30s. So after all that pain and suffering, she was inflicted with cancer and succumbed to cancer, I think, probably about 8 years ago. So, and Reggie, you know, he, high school kid, could be you, you know, out with friends. Everything seems so simple, so easy, so, you know, no problem. And then all of a sudden things got out of control. So we've got to focus tomorrow's class on the penalties and we haven't really touched on drugs too much. So we're going to kind of do a little bit of that tomorrow too. But tonight was more about the behavior, the attitudes around drinking and driving, what your BAC levels would look like, you know, how you would react, some of the people's lives, how they've been just turned upside down by addiction. So hopefully this gives you something to think about. Do some good articles, find 2 interesting articles. I like to include new things into the driver's ed program. So if you do really well, then I'll include that. Now, I still need a 3 and 5 for tomorrow night. So if you can drive, I would appreciate that. And I've got a 3 o'clock on Friday. So 3 and 5 for tomorrow, 3 o'clock on Friday. If you can drive, please, please, please take those times, because I don't want to be sitting in my car waiting for the next driver. I want to fill up my day, and you guys want to get done. So, all right, that's it for tonight. So do your reading. Actually, there is no reading. If you did chapter 18, the laws are in the manual. So go back to the state manual, thumb to the section on alcohol. You'll find what the penalties are. I want you to change those. Okay, so we're talking about driving, first offense, second offense, transporting, implied consent, and open container. All right, so those are some of the laws that I want you to take a look at and change. So that's it for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at 7:30. If not, we'll see you if you're driving tomorrow. So that's it. Have a good night.